My name is Beth, and you are listening to the Canna Fitness and Nutrition Podcast, where we are hanging out at the intersection of fitness, nutrition, and cannabis. And today, first I want to thank you for listening because this has been really fun for me to be able to have a voice and to be able to talk a little bit longer than 90 seconds on Instagram and to get your feedback. And I know that a lot of you are saying this is very relatable, and I appreciate that, and I really hope that this helps, this message helps. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about vacation because we just got back from vacation, and not just what we did, but more so what I learned and how it ties into mindful eating. And there's a lesson at the end, so hang on tight. Hopefully this won't be too long, and we're going to talk about that. So we just got back from a week in Sedona, Arizona, which is a beautiful spot. If you've never been there, I highly recommend it. If you like the outdoors and you like hiking, it is definitely a mecca for that because there are some just beautiful rock formations and beautiful hikes that can be done in Sedona, Arizona. So our vacation style lately has been, we are exploring. We like to hike, and let me be clear, we're not like super day hikers. We are, super overnight winter camping by any stretch. We are find 3 to 4 mile trail, enjoy it, and then come back and put our feet up. So we tend to, and what we've been doing the last few years, we just really enjoy having an Airbnb because even though it's just the two of us, we really like being able to, put our feet up, spread out, have a kitchen, and be able to just use that and almost as if we're at home, but we're not at home, so we don't have to clean or do laundry or take care of or fix anything. And, there's no work calling, there's no responsibilities, but having a place that's nice and spacious and that is, we can just kick back. And we really like having a kitchen because especially because we've been hiking a lot in the last few years, is we're not necessarily motivated after a hike to get all dolled up and go out to eat. We like to be able to, if we want to, we can go out to eat, but we like to also be able to just come home and put our feet up and, get takeout or eat something easy and not make it a big production. So typically when we get there, this was a long trip because from Albany, we drove to Connecticut to drop the dog off, and then we drove to JFK from there, flew out of JFK, landed in Phoenix, and drove to Sedona from Phoenix. So it was kind of late when we got there. We stopped at the store, which we pretty much always do, just to grab some breakfast items. And then the next day, we go and do a bigger grocery shop, which may sound like a chore, but it's more of just having stuff on hand so that we're not really thinking about meals we're gonna make because we're not necessarily cooking, but we do like to have just breakfast things. We like to have our yogurt or eggs or easy things. We buy a ton of fruit. We'll buy snack items, cheese, lunch meats, fruit, I already said, yogurt. What else do we get? We get coffee to have at home so that we're not constantly running to Starbucks. And we buy, sometimes I buy stuff to make little sandwiches to take on a hike, or we'll buy, some snacks to take on a hike, like nuts or trail mix or bars, something along those lines. So we just kind of stock up on stuff we would need for the week. And so at that point, for the rest of the meals, we just sort of play it by ear and kind of how we feel. So we'll go out or we'll get takeout or we'll grab things based on how we're feeling that day. So pretty low key, which is different than our regular days because our regular days are pretty, I would say organized is probably the correct word. And if you've worked with me and if you've been following me and listening, you know that that's one of my big pillars is being organized. And this is why. Because first of all, my main mantra is we make poor decisions when we're hungry. And you probably can relate to that because we've all been there where life got in the way and you end up hungry and then you're fighting with yourself to try to make a good decision. right? I see this happen a lot to people, a lot to clients. And that's one of the things that I like to help with, is trying to get a little more organized so that you don't get stuck hungry without food available, because that's when the poor decision making happens. You may have been here, and I was there for years, where I'd finish work, I would be starving, because with my job as a personal trainer, you tend to work late hours. So, I'd be starving at 7, 8, sometimes 9 o'clock at night, and I still need to eat dinner. So, and then you may have felt this way too, even if it's only 5 o'clock or 4:30 when you're done with work. Same principle applies. You're hungry and you need to make a decision about what to have. So if you haven't planned it ahead, you are fighting with yourself. So you may have experienced that. Fighting with yourself, you end up at the grocery store and you're fighting with yourself. What about, should I grab a pizza to throw in the oven? Or should I buy a package of chicken and some vegetables and make a stir fry, right? What's the better idea here? Healthy, obviously, would be to buy a package of meat and some vegetables and stir fry it up. But at this point in the day, who wants to do that? Like, you won't want to stand in front of the stove and do that for 45 minutes and put that together, when you could just throw a pizza in the oven and sit on the couch and relax and put your feet up for a minute, right? Or what I'm seeing a lot since COVID is I'm seeing a lot of takeout, because it is super easy, right? So when we're not planning ahead for our meals, or we're not cooking ahead, or even having ideas about what's gonna happen, or having the food on hand, we're ordering takeout, we're getting the frozen pizzas, we're doing what's easy, because decision fatigue and mental overload are very, very real. That is a very real principle and phenomenon that's happening these days, more so than ever before. And you could probably relate to that, because as the day goes on, you have already made 1,001 decisions about everything, right? From the moment you wake up, there's decisions to be made: what to eat, what to wear, how to get to work, what to do, answering the calls, putting out the fires, taking care of everybody. All of these things add up during the day, because we're busy and there's a lot that goes on, and you're constantly getting messages and emails and text messages and requests. And no matter what your job is, you are making 1,001 decisions a day. So by the time the end of the day, whether your end of day is at 4:30, 5, or 8:30, at the end of the day, your brain is fried, and it is so much harder to make a good decision at that point. So that's why one of my main principles is to organize what you're eating. Planning ahead, it sometimes could be preparing ahead of time, but at least, the very least, it's having the food on hand, so that you're not at the store and fighting with yourself, and you're not ordering takeout on the way home, right? Because that can get us in trouble. So at home for us, I am pretty organized. Because my schedule and my husband's schedule is very different, we tend to actually eat separately most days. And that might sound kind of sad, but it's fine. And we don't have children with us in the house, so we can kind of do our own thing. So we pretty much get our own stuff, and make our own dinners for the most part. Obviously lunchtime, we're both at work, and breakfast, we're both on our way. But for dinner, we pretty much do our own thing a lot of the times. So on the weekend, typically, I think about the things I'm gonna need for what I'm gonna make during the week, which is pretty much the same things over and over again. It's just different meats and vegetables. Sweet potatoes I love, or, like a brown rice or quinoa or something along those lines. And I have that ready to go, so that, when my day is over, I can just put that together and then eat it, right? And my husband, he's on his kind of own schedule with his job, can also have long hours, or his activities. So he puts together, he also does the same thing. He buys whatever he's gonna want. He's more of a cook, so he gets a little more adventurous with the food, but he puts it together when it's his time to eat. So we pretty much just monitor that on our own. So on vacation, we back to vacation. So on vacation, we had our great couple of days, doing breakfast, lunch, hikes, and then dinners. One night we went out for Mexican food. That was delicious. One time we went out for pizza. That was delicious. A couple of times, I think 2 times, we went to Whole Foods, which our Whole Foods where we live now is kind of not in a convenient direction, so we don't go there a ton. But the one in Sedona was just 2 minutes down the street. So we went to Whole Foods, check it out, because we don't get to go there a lot. And they have this cool thing where it's at kind of like the deli hot food area where they have those, almost like a buffet of salad and hot food. That's cool. But if you go to the counter, you can pick out freshly made where you get 1 meat and 2 sides for $13, $14. It depends on what you get. And that really caught my attention because they had 4 different kinds of chicken. They had, different meats. They had meatballs and meatloaf and fish and all different kinds of proteins, meats that were cooked in healthy ways. They weren't just breaded and fried. And they had a lot of different sides. So they had, all different kinds of vegetables cooked in different ways, and they had sweet potatoes, which I love. They had mushrooms and green beans, and I could go on forever. And if you've been to Whole Foods, you probably already know this, so I may not be telling you anything new. However, we really liked it, and we did that 2 times. We did that. We picked up Whole Foods dinner, heated it up, and we're able to just kick back on the couch after a long day of hiking. And again, we're there to relax. We're not there to get dolled up, and Sedona's not really a dolled up place anyway to go out for the night. It's more of a hiking outside kind of place. So we did that a couple times. Now, here's what I noticed. A couple of things. Because one, we were eating together. Because like I said, it's maybe untraditional to eat separately. It might not be, but we typically don't eat together. So for dinner, I should say. So what I do typically for dinner is I make my food and then I sit down and usually have my phone, and this is a little embarrassing to admit, but usually on my phone with the TV also on, and I'm scrolling Instagram. I am looking for ideas of things to maybe write about or talk about, or I'm making Instagram posts because sometimes that's the only time I get during the day to sit down and put that together. And I'm catching up on stuff. I'm catching up on text message. I'm catching up on schedules. I'm catching up on emails. I typically work while I'm eating. So, and again, this is a little embarrassing to say that because I realized on vacation, eating with my husband, I did not have my phone. We actually talked and sat and ate our food. At a restaurant, you're not on your phone. And maybe that's a plus of going to a restaurant. But I noticed that I was way more mindful. Way more mindful. I'm pretty good breakfast, lunch. I'm pretty good about during the day about eating to fullness, eating to what we call 80% fullness. So just before you feel stuffed, stopping eating. And again, this is one of my main principles is paying attention to our fullness levels and our hunger levels too. But in this case, it's fullness and stopping before we're stuffed. Because that is the correct, I would like to say, the correct way to monitor your food intake is to give your body what it needs, but stop before you're full. So that some people call it politely full. I've seen that term. 80% full is what I use as a guide, where you could take a little bit more, but if you did, you'd be stuffed kind of thing, right? So we all know what stuff feels like because we've all sat there and said to ourselves, all right, that was too much. I didn't need those last 3 bites. That was too much. That put me over the edge. We all know the sensation in our stomach when we're full. but how often are we paying attention to it? And again, I feel like I'm being a little vulnerable here because I claim this to be my thing, and like I said, I am pretty good during the day, but at the end of the day, I haven't been. And that was my big awakening on vacation, was that sitting down and in a different place, because I was in a different place, there was actually a table. So we weren't eating in front of the TV. We sat at a table or at a restaurant, and we were just with each other. So I wasn't working on my phone and trying to do Instagrams during dinner. I was actually just eating and just paying attention. So I realized that at home, I have lost track of that mindfulness during dinner. Now, let me bring this back to what I was saying earlier about the end of the day. Remember how I said it's super common to have decision fatigue and mental overload at the end of the day? Well, that's what that is. It's happening to me too, and I'm guilty of it. And I'm excited that I recognized it. I'm actually really excited that I recognized it because I know how to fix it. I think that it's super common, and if you're a client of mine, you're going to be hearing about this in the next couple weeks because we're going to be working carefully on this, because I know that it's really easy to get off track of eating mindfully. And when we are distracting ourselves, like with the phone or TV, it's really easy not to pay attention. And mindfulness, like I said, I'm pretty good at mindfulness. I am good at making healthy choices, and my cannabis really helps with that because my CBD and the THC slows me down enough to make good decisions, and I can say to myself, okay, do I really need that? Is this what I want? Is this going to be the best decision for me? And I can take that moment to pause and reflect before I just automatically grab whatever's calling to me, because the urge to eat isn't always real, right? We know that it can be emotionally based. We know that it can be stress based. And a lot of times we have to stop and ask ourselves, okay, are we really hungry? And if I am hungry, what's the best decision to make? I don't want to just grab what's in front of me. I don't want to just grab a chocolate bar because that sounds good. I don't want to crash. I don't want just to have pizza because I need energy, and I don't want to have an energy crash in a few hours. So I want to have protein and I want to have fiber because I want to feel good after. But there's still an element, it's not just that. There's still an element of paying attention to our fullness and stopping before we are stuffed. So again, what I realized was that at home lately, I have lost track of that. I've been overwhelmed with mental overload and decision fatigue and wrapped up in my own things and not listening to my own fullness and not paying attention to portions. So since I've been home, so now that I recognize that, which again, I'm excited that I recognized it because it's just a nice wake-up call that I need to be diligent about it and how easy it is to get off of that. So I'm super thankful for vacation as that reset that allowed me to realize that I'm really good at this when I focus on it, because it requires focus. We have to pay attention. And I know I talk about this a lot, but that mindless snacking at night, whether it's dinner or after dinner, it's so common because of our decision fatigue and mental overload. We just want to relax and not have to think about what we're eating. And the more we distract ourselves with phones and scrolling and emails, and the more we distract ourselves with TV, the less we're paying attention. So now, new rule at home is no phone, just eat. Just eat the food, stop when you're full, and then you can do your phone activities afterwards. So I hope that's relatable for you, and I hope that it also shows you that I am not perfect at this. It is a skill that requires practice, and it is something that you have to continuously check in again. Now, I'm not saying that I was so off track that I gained a bunch of weight or anything. It's not that at all, actually. It's simply the fact that I was eating past fullness is unnecessary. Now, if that had gone on for months and months or years, that's when the weight starts to creep on. And as you know, weight creeps on slowly until all of a sudden, now your pants don't fit, right? So it happens over time. And sometimes if you're frustrated because your pants don't fit and you can't lose weight and you can't quite figure it out, sometimes it's as simple as not eating past fullness and stopping. It's truly portion control, right? But measuring can get tedious, and you can feel like you're punishing yourself if you're constantly measuring food. And do recommend some measuring, but also just simply paying attention to our fullness, where we're eating to satisfaction. You're eating enough. That is super important for me to say. You're eating enough, but you know that if you were to eat as much as you want, as much as your eyes want, your stomach will be uncomfortable, right? So there's a difference in there. So if you understand that, then I hope this is helpful. If that concept doesn't make sense, and you would like to talk about that more and kind of flesh that out, I'd be happy to share more about that with you and help you with that, because it is a skill that takes some practice, just like playing an instrument. Nobody sits down at a piano or picks up a guitar or flute and just starts playing beautiful music. That just doesn't happen. So, but I do believe, and I go back to this time and time again, this is the most natural way to maintain your weight and your size by making mindful decisions about what it is, but also simply listening to our fullness. We're not just finishing the plate because it's there, right? Because a lot of times our eyes are bigger than our stomach, they say, right? So you've put more food on your plate than you really need, and you just eat it all because it's there, right? So a couple of things that I'm doing now that I'm home. Couple of things. I've transitioned to smaller plates, because I find that that's a nice way to eat smaller portions, but not sacrifice or not feel like I'm sacrificing. Smaller plate, it's less food, but it still feels visually satisfying. So smaller plates, little more portion control, a little more attention is really what it is. Smaller plates, more attention. So less phone, more attention, more turning inward. And like I said, I'm actually pretty good at that for breakfast and lunch. It's just that dinner and after dinner too, where you're like, oh, maybe I'll have some of this, or maybe I'll have some of that, where you have to go back to asking, am I really hungry, or do I just want that? Am I really hungry? Then go ahead. Absolutely. Have the snack, have whatever it is that you want. If you're really hungry or you don't feel satisfied from dinner, have an extra snack. Make sure you're eating enough protein. You have to eat enough food. But if you find that you are also mindlessly eating, not paying attention, and just finishing your food just for the sake of finishing it, you're not paying attention to your stomach. You're not listening to your stomach. You're paying attention to your plate, and you're finishing just to finish. You're not actually listening to your stomach and letting that guide you, just like I wasn't. I was not letting my stomach guide me. I was letting my plate guide me. So I was done when the plate was empty. But that's not honestly the way that we should be eating, in my opinion. Think about if you've ever had kids, or even just been around kids, you'll notice that they will stop eating when they're full. And I'm talking young kids, because at this point in society, even school age kids are eating past fullness because it's something they've learned, unfortunately. They're learning to clear their plate. They're learning to eat the whole bag. I mean, how many times have I seen kids, sitting on a couch with a bag of potato chips? They're just eating it. They're not paying attention. Little kids, toddlers, when they first learn to eat, they stop when they're full. They automatically stop. And it may be frustrating as a parent because they've left food on their tray or their plate. They've left food there, but that's because they're full. They're done. They're done. They know that it doesn't matter. The kids don't care. The little kids especially, they don't care. There's food left. They're just going to leave it because they're not hungry. They're done. They're full. They understand what that feels like. And we've gotten way past that. We're finishing just to finish the plate. We're finishing just to finish the bag. We're finishing because we don't want to waste food, right? Have you heard that or ever thought about that? That I hear a lot of. We don't want to waste food, so we just finish it. But that's really doing us a disservice because first of all, it's okay to waste food. We live in a food abundant society. In America here, we have plenty of food. And it's okay if you're gonna throw some away. Because honestly, it's gonna be better for you in the long run so that you don't get diabetes and have a heart attack from overeating. And it is okay. It's also okay to have leftovers. It's okay to put the rest in the fridge and see if you want it later. I can't tell you the amount of times that I actually just sort of eat my breakfast all day because I'll make a big bowl and then I'll eat some of it, get full, put it in the fridge, and then pull it out if I get hungry later in the morning or in the middle of the afternoon. I might be finishing my breakfast or eating some of it because I just go by when I'm hungry and I eat to satisfied. But at night, man, at dinner, it is just tired, decision fatigue, mental overload, and it's gotten the best of me. So I'm refreshed from vacation and I am on a mission to get back in touch with the dinner time and after dinner fullness signals. And again, if this is something that's new to you and you feel like you don't know when you're full, I'd love to talk to you because I think that there is some that we can learn. It's been a lot of years since we were those little babies that stopped when we were full, but we can tap into that. And we can tap into that. And cannabis, as I've mentioned, can be incredibly helpful in our mindful eating because it helps us tune into those natural sensations of fullness or hunger. It gives us a moment to pause and make a good decision. So if you find that you're more of an impulsive eater, where whatever sounds good, you just grab it, or whatever comes to mind and is intriguing, you grab it and eat it, and you don't put much thought into it, you feel like you're impulsive, or you feel like you have a lot of urges to eat, or even if you feel like you don't ever get full, that's something that we can fix because chances are there's just a couple things that need to be tweaked, and then you'll understand. So anyway, that being said, I said I would keep this on the shorter side, so I hope that this has been helpful for you. And as always, please reach out if you'd like to talk. I am at cannafitnessnutrition.com. I am Beth_fit_personal_trainer on Instagram. And you can always email me at skinnerel@gmail.com. And I look forward to sharing more with you next time.